The private markets earlier used to be just for the wealthiest among us. And our mission here has always been give the little guys access and making sure that wealth creation can be achieved by a broader population.
This is Jean Brandolini-Lamb, CMO of EquityZen, now part of Morgan Stanley. She spent years inside the big banks, watching how the wealthy invested. Then she set out to open that door wider.
When I worked at a very big bank, they used SPVs for their very wealthy clients to invest big check into private companies. And when I came to talk to the team here at EquityZen, I was amazed. I was like, wow, these guys figured out to make them available to just your average accredited investor. And what was so exciting for us at EquityZen, we have about 1,400 investors who invested into Cerebra 6 years before it went public. The investment size was as low as $5,000. The average price paid per share was $32. At IPO, it was $185 per share. That's more than 5 times return. It's 5.6 times return on what they invested.
If you had $100,000 and no marketing rules, no compliance rules, what growth channel are you testing?
I am...
Welcome to CMO Uncovered, which is proudly sponsored by CleverTap, the all-in-one engagement platform helping brands turn customer moments into measurable growth. If you're serious about retention, lifecycle marketing, and using AI to drive smarter engagement, CleverTap is the partner you want in your corner.
Jean Brandolini-Lamb, thank you so much for joining us on CMO Uncovered. This is our 3rd episode. I couldn't be more excited.
3 is my lucky number.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Lucky number 3. Jean has been a friend and worked with Jean over the years. It's been incredible to see EquityZen continue to scale, and I think it's we haven't been in this exciting of a market in many moons. And so, Jean, I'd love to just kick things off by you telling us a little bit more about you and EquityZen, if you feel comfortable.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Really excited to be here with you both. I graduated from college and had a degree in art history and started managing art galleries, and decided the part of it I liked the most was really the PR part, the comms part, the doing the marketing, trying to get reporters to write about what we were doing. And so I went from there into PR and then found my way to technology and financial services. And I found my way to EquityZen because I saw, having worked for some really large financial services institutions, that we were starting to see about 4 years ago, like real democratization and like real fintech change. And when I started looking at different companies, I found EquityZen. And what EquityZen did then and does today is enable accredited investors to invest in private companies. And we find that it's companies that people believe in. They either learn about it through work, or they're investors who are like reading about new technology every day. But they are unfailingly optimistic and they want to be part of the future. And they feel like innovation is really happening in the private markets. So for as little as $5,000, EquityZen allows accredited investors to invest in private, mostly technology companies.
Awesome.
You said the $5,000 minimum, and I found that very interesting, right? And before we sort of get into this question, one, obviously, it would be really great if you could sort of help understand Luddites like me who have very little understanding of what the secondary market really is, right? If you could just double click how this really works, right? Like, and then the follow-up question was the $5,000 minimum, right? Like the rest of the market is typically, I don't know, about 100K and upwards, right? So what was the logic behind that? And did that really show up in your numbers in the way, you've seen growth with EquityZen? But before I get into that, like, just, help me understand what EquityZen does.
How does it work? Well, why don't we start with the accredited investor piece?
Yes.
An accredited investor is a definition. It's an SEC definition. And so in order to participate in the kinds of funds that EquityZen offers, we have to follow the SEC's definition. So individuals, you either have a net worth over $1 million, excluding your primary residence, or you have income individually of $200,000 over the last 2 years, or $300,000 with a spouse. And so that's the financial criteria. Investment professionals, if you have a Series 7, you're automatically an accredited investor. And that's really so you have a level of wealth that allows you to participate in sort of non-traditional securities like we have on EquityZen. What we do here is we not only make sure that you're an accredited investor, but we also make sure that you have a risk profile that you should, if you're very conservative in terms of your investment style, like investing in private companies and alternatives is probably not the best choice for you. So we really want to make sure that we're working with people who are accredited and comfortable with this kind of investment.
And typically, how do you source these pre-IPO, shares? Like, how does that work?
Well, now that we're part of Morgan Stanley, we share this interest, this belief in working with these private companies themselves. When we were EquityZen by ourselves, we ran every deal by the private company to make sure we got their stamp of approval. Not everyone in the market does that. And Morgan Stanley has an issuer focus because they have Morgan Stanley at work. So private companies are their clients as well. And so we work with the private companies, but we also have a network of employees. It's usually early employees, early investors who need some liquidity. They're usually not selling everything. What they need is a down payment for a house. They need to buy a car. They need to pay student loans. We've even seen one of our clients was the CEO of a company, and he sold some shares to fund a scholarship program to send a bunch of kids to college. So every shareholder has a different reason why they need some liquidity. Mostly it's personal reasons, and they just have their timelines a little different from the company's either IPO timeline or tender offer timeline. And so we're here to help them.
I'll be honest, I didn't know you could do this, right? And that's on me, right? Like I was living under a rock. So just going back to my earlier question, right? Like the $5,000 minimum, right? Typically, from what I understand, it's a 100,000 minimum, right? Like, but with EquityZen, it's $5,000. So why that decision? And do you see that reflect in the kind of people you're attracting and in just your numbers?
Well, the reason why it's really EquityZen has purpose-built technology that really enables us to create these vehicles that you can invest in.
Right.
So one of the reasons why I came to work at EquityZen is these funds that we create are called special purpose vehicles, or SPVs for short. And what happened when I worked at a very big bank, they used SPVs for their very wealthy clients to invest big checks, like you're suggesting, into private companies. And when I came to talk to the team here at EquityZen, I was amazed. I was like, wow, these guys figured out through processes and technology to take these same special purpose vehicles that used to be accessible only to the very wealthy, and they found a way to make them available to just your average accredited investor.
Right.
And so other companies that create these SPVs, they're very costly. They're costly to make, they're costly to build, but EquityZen found the way to basically be able to manufacture these funds. And so we can create the funds in a very cost-efficient way. And as we learned more and got more clients in, we realized, oh, wow, we can even reduce for some of our investments down to $5,000, and we can still make these work. So it's really because of the technology and the processes and the way that we can manufacture these that we're able to offer much lower minimums than typical. And so it's exciting. We think it enables more people to participate, and more what we find is that our clients don't necessarily bring down the level of their investment minimums. What they find is they're actually spreading it into
I
other
see.
places,
I see.
right? So it's like a company may be on their list, but maybe not at the top of their list, and they'll say, "Oh, you know what? But I'll put $5,000 in."
Hmm.
It's really interesting. The equities in product itself, it's really a two-sided marketplace, and the seat that you're sitting in, Gene, is you're kind of doing two jobs because you have two different funnels that you have to make sure are sides of the marketplace that are fully populated, right? You have the individuals that are looking to sell equity, and then you have the people that are looking to buy equity. And so I'm curious how you manage that, and also curious if there's one you prioritize or if it's just always a balancing act.
I think it's a balancing act. We actually think we have like three audiences that we need to manage. So it's the B2C side is like the individual investor. It's also the individual shareholder.
Mm.
And then the B2B/B2B2C side is like we always want to have those relationships. We always want to be supportive of the private companies themselves. And we always want to be there so that we can help them. And in time, we've really shifted the perception of all of those audiences, right? Because to your point, Myrna, it's like this is a new market. So, investors are so glad to have access to something that they can't have access to
Right.
in many other places. Um, there was a while that, the only place to access AI and AI innovation is in the private markets.
Hmm.
Then the the shareholders themselves are really interested in, they just need some liquidity. Like they believe in their companies typically. They're staying put where they are, but they just need some liquidity to like move to a next stage of their life. And then the issuers, when EquityZen was started about 13 years ago, um, issuers were like, secondaries, I don't know, do we want to do this? But we've we've taken that same mindset of technology and processing, and we've worked to make it as easy as possible for the issuers. We don't charge them for like taking the process on and helping people move through the process. So our goal is to just make it as easy and seamless for them as we can.
I think it's so interesting that 13 equities in founded 13 years ago. I mean, the secondary market was completely non-existent then. And me sitting in my seat as a VC, like even us internally, we're uh, sometimes even saying as VCs, like, oh, well, well, if it takes too long, there is a secondary market. And these are words that were never, ever discussed in a VC room, a decade ago. And so I guess two questions being is you kind of introducing being one of the leaders of introducing the secondary market to the world, and you as a marketing leader, I mean, that's not easy. A lot of times when you're marketing, you have 10 to 100 other competitors that have kind of paved the way for you, the people that have failed, the people that have been successful. But having to kind of pave the way to not just sell the product, but educate the world before
Hmm.
they can actually like engage with the product. What has that journey kind of been on your end?
Yeah, for EquityZen, when I started here, it was, people who knew the secondary market knew of EquityZen. But I always do this too when someone new comes to work here. I say, "Did you know that you could invest in a private company before you came here?" And you hear most of them are like, "No," and I told my friends and they couldn't believe it. And so it's really a large segment of the accredited investor population, the majority, I'd say, that still doesn't know that you can invest in private companies. And so in our work, we've always been driven by the idea that we can't lead with brand awareness, trying to grow brand awareness for EquityZen, like we have to build category awareness. And so we look for ways to educate. We look for ways to welcome people to the market. We launched, we were one of 2 data partners with Yahoo Finance last year. Yahoo Finance started to cover private companies. So you can go and search for a top private company, and you'll find information from EquityZen on that company page. And the reason why we did that is that, there is growing interest in investing in this, but it's still a relatively small part of the eligible population knows that they can invest in these private companies. And so we are looking always for ways to just build and broaden awareness. And so that's why it's such an interesting marketing challenge, because if you grow awareness about the category, people are going to learn about you and your competitors. And so where we choose to stand apart is say, okay, you might learn about us, you might learn about our competitors, but we want to make sure that we are offering the most welcoming place for you to come. We provide a ton of information on our EquityZen insights. We make sure that information is searchable. So if you're searching something, you'll find us. And, our EquityZen Insights is at blog.equityzen.com. And there we really just look for ways. We look for questions that we see. We look for questions that new clients ask us. We look for questions in search, and we answer those questions, because there really wasn't, before we started, there wasn't one place where you could go to learn about investing in private markets.
And in this, from at least what I'm understanding, the way your content strategy currently works, right? Like there's the education layer, there's the brand awareness layer. Before, actually, there's a category education, then the brand awareness, and then eventually acquisition, right? Like, so is there a way, like in the customer journey, right, in their content journey, like is there a moment where you can actually tell that someone's actually crossed from just being curious to like ready to transact, right? Like, how do you identify that low funnel in such a when the upper funnel itself is so long, right? Like, so are there moments where you're able to identify that they're ready to transact now? It's not just curiosity.
We have two kinds of mindsets for people who come to our platform, and we try to create content for both. There's people who are just searching and interested in investing in one specific company or one specific technology. And we think, okay, we hope they find us, and we think that's probably a shorter path because it really fits within a self-directed mindset, a self-directed investor mindset. Invest in a company. And then what we've started to see the past few years is that there's people who are learning about the category for the first time, and they want to do that research. But for them, they're looking for more transparency. They're looking for a little bit more hand-holding. They're looking for more details. They're maybe not as open to risk as some of our more active clients who just pursue risk as part of their daily investing. They're doing this every day.
Right.
And so we're trying to serve both of them. Like, we have depths of information on individual companies. We update them regularly. If you join our platform and you're interested in one specific company and we have a deal in it, our team has recreated the cap table based on publicly available information. And so that's depth of information on the company.
Right. So it's almost like a two-step funnel that you build.
So yeah, and on the investor side, you're right. There's two-step funnel. And then there's people who are just more interested in learning about the category more generally. They want to learn about, I'm interested in AI. Tell me about different kinds of AI. What companies are in each of these categories? And so we try to work on the investor side through both of those funnels.
It makes me think, as you are building out your user base on all sides of the market, I'm sure there's different ways that everyone wants to engage with the product. I'm curious, like, what the partnership is with the EquityZen product team and marketing. Like, how closely do you have to move together as you're building this end user experience to not just like acquire new users, but make it so they're building a portfolio with you and not just a one-time investment?
I mean, we're inseparable.
Best friends.
I'm sure my product partner, Sudesh, I can't wait for him to see this. Yeah, we are on the phone multiple times a day. He was actually my first phone call today. So, yeah. It's, you're exactly right. It's like our product is what we offer. It's our experience. It's like any other, but marketing and content is such a core part of that because people aren't just seeking product, they're seeking information. And so it goes the product and the information go hand in hand.
I mean, do you have a master minority report dashboard where you can just like see what every user is doing? But I'm like, when you go to your product team, is there like a set of data that you're bringing to them saying like, hey, whenever this person lands on this company, they are looking for a piece of data that's not currently being shown? Or like, but like, how are you showing up for each other as you're partnering to like either turnkey new features or products or even changing copy?
Yeah, I mean, we look at data together, actually. I think that's one of our best practices is from our business operations team to our product team to marketing, like we share and look at data together. And we now look at, we can look at the performance of our deals, but we also look at where is their investor interest? Like where is the investor interest going so that we can help on the supply side because we know the investor demand. And so to get back to the product team question, like we've built the site in such a way that marketing and product can work really closely together. So, we have a dashboard for all of our investors who come back to the platform. There are sort of action cards that marketing has a hand in on like what is your next best action? How can we help you form a richer and deeper relationship with EquityZen?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's something we talk about often is just the connection between growth and product. And it makes me just not to switch the topic too much, but I feel like we're in the middle of this like really exciting cycle of companies going public. And I know, you can't talk about things that haven't happened yet, but we can talk about things that have happened. And so what is it like for like, for a company to go public or there being a huge liquidity event? Like as a growth mind, how does that what's that moment for a customer? How do you take advantage of that moment as like a opportunity to build a deeper relationship? But what is the energy at EquityZen when those moments happen?
We have a big gong in our office. And so when
Always.
something super exciting happens, there's a gong present. Um, and we there was an IPO a few weeks ago that was really exciting for us and for our investors. So we an AI company, a hardware company called Cerebras went public a couple weeks ago. And what was so exciting for us at EquityZen is we have about 1,400 investors who invested starting in 2020 into Cerebras, so 6 years before it went public. The investment size was as low as $5,000. The average price paid for share was $32, almost $33. The lowest price paid was $11.55. The median check size was $20,000, and our investors owned 1.5% of
Wow.
Cerebras when the company went public. So, here is the private markets, to your point earlier, used to be just for the wealthiest among us. And, our mission here has always been, how can we make wealth creation not just for the already wealthy? So, there are people who invested much more, who could make much more at the time of IPO, but our average investors, with their average, the median check size of 19,000, if they invested at the average price, $32, that's more than a 5 times return. It's 5.6 times return on what they invested. And so that's the whole reason why we're here. Like, we are here to give the little guys access, and hopefully like help them on their journey to creating wealth and making sure that wealth creation can be achieved by a broader population.
That's very cool.
At IPO, it was $185 per share. That was
Oh, wow.
that was the strike price.
I'm guessing the compliance paradigm for you, right, like must now only become stronger, right? Like every copy that you sort of create lives in an SEC compliant framework, right? And with your previous experience with JP Morgan and TIAA, this is not unfamiliar territory for you at all. But what how is it different when you're working at like a fintech at EquityZen, right? Like, and are there any challenges that you end up seeing when there's the fintech that wants to grow at a large scale, but there is that compliance world that you cannot leave? Is it really a constraint, or it just makes you more creative? So just if you could touch on this, that would be fun.
I think it makes, Atish and Phil, the two co-founders of the company, they were always interested in doing things the right way and like being compliant. And so very early on, they had a chief compliance officer. Very early on, we had legal teams. We still have, if there's a deal going through and we're talking to a company to close the deal, that's lawyers on our team are doing that. And so we've always had a very compliant mindset, which I think which can be a little different from other fintechs who maybe are more comfortable skirting rules. I'm not sure if but like for us, it was really about not just being compliant, but also being helpful to our regulators. The market's new for them too. So how can we explain? How can we share what we're trying to do? How can we tell them what we're trying to do and how we want to do it? And so our chief compliance officer is wonderful. She's built really great relationships, and we work with them to explain what we're trying to do, and share the opportunity for the market. And then, so for us, then it becomes from a marketing perspective, like, what is the creativity that we can have inside,
Exactly.
inside the box? Like, if we know people are interested in a certain kind of technology, or we know people are interested in a certain kind of company, like that gives us permission to them to talk to them about those kinds of companies. But we can't, every person who joins our platform, we have to build in personalization, right? Because we can't offer them everything. So we have built in ways for them to give us indications of what they're interested in. And then that helps us personalize the content that we send to them.
Right.
It's like compliance is like a forced personalization, but that's what marketers want to do anyway. Like, you want to give people relevant offers.
Right. So it effectively, like, it's not a constraint. It just makes you work harder to, speak to to personalize the experience for your users effectively.
Exactly.
Right. But then does this mean that even the people that you're hiring in your team, right? Like, are you hiring people who already know this domain and are understand this compliance world? Because I mean, I'm a marketer. I worked for a fintech for about 1.5 years. It took me a while to just get used to what I was allowed to do, right? Like, then I will do it, right? So is your hiring lens a little different when you're hiring for your team?
Our team is small but mighty. So like some people, some of them started and had experience with, if not financial services, they had experience with some sort of regulated industry, and some didn't. But we just worked to try to explain the why, so compliance, we don't think about compliance as someone who says yes or no. We think about compliance as like our partner to help us get the word out. I don't know. It's not necessary to work here. It does help, to your point. Like there is some knowledge transfer, but I think maybe part of it is we're always focused on like the why we're trying to do something and maybe why we can't from a compliance perspective, and then see if we can get some common ground.
I want to go back for a second to, the limitation or the opportunity around compliance on the growth front. I am curious, do you feel if on the limitation end of this that it hurts the ability to be creative? I always think because we do so much work with so many fintech companies,
Right.
I always attribute it back to like someone telling you just won a world like the World Series, but you can't yell or scream. You have to kind of like be quiet, like you're like, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be too loud because there's this like governor on how you share that news. So I am curious, do you feel as if you cannot be as creative as many marketers can with different products?
Yeah, one thing that we don't do, and maybe some of our competitors do, but we're just not comfortable, is we can't go out and talk about specific deals that are live on our platform.
Mm.
And so I think that I think it just drives us to be more creative and to be more that whole welcoming idea again. This idea of people don't how do we build category awareness? Once people know the category and might be interested, how do we give them the information they need, whether it's about a company or just hand holding through the process? And then how how do we guide them along the path? And the fact of the matter is that there might be certain things that you're like, oh God, I wish I could do this. But the fact of the matter is actually you want in the kind of business that we're in, you want people who this kind of investment is appropriate for here. And so sometimes this broad mass, maybe, a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sexy words and messages. Maybe we don't want to be so clever. Like maybe maybe we really just want to reach the people who belong here and should be here and who are educated and want to educate themselves more. Like, so rather than trying to reach everyone who's looking for like the next hot thing, it's like we actually want to reach the responsible investor who's interested in some diversity and like wants to invest in technology they believe in.
If when there is a customer that is onboarded, maybe invested in a couple deals, are the gloves off? Do you have the ability to market to them any way you want, or are there still limitations you
There's still
have?
limitations.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
And what are those limitations, if I may? Sorry, like what are those limitations? These are retained customers. I would assume that now you would have the option to engage them the way you see fit, right? Like you see compliant fit. But what are those restrictions that you run into?
Well, it's just we can't recommend something. And so if you haven't told us that you're interested in something, we either have to tell you everything that's live on our marketplace that's a certain deal type, or we can only, if we're writing to you about just specific deals and specific companies, we need to know that that's something that you're interested in. This is a sort of PSA though for our clients. Like really do come to, if you're interested in a certain company or a category and you haven't told us, we can't tell you when the deal's gone live. So, the more information you give us, the more relevant the communication we have with you can be.
And how are you orchestrating this information, right? Like you're asking, is it through surveys, zero party data? Is that how you're going about this? Like how can I give you that information as a user?
So as a user, when you're logged into the site, you click a button and tell us that you're interested in a certain company. You tell us how much you might be interested in investing in that company. And that comes to us, and then we catalog, okay, these are your indications of interest, and the amount that you've given us just helps us to build the signal for the supply side of our marketplace.
Right. And from what I understand, you also lead customer experience at Equities. And so is this one of the main reasons why, customer experience and, the CMO role are sort of under the same hood? Because you can't market to people if you don't have an understanding of their customer experience and the information that they're giving you.
Right. And it's like, what is the journey? Where are the opportunities on the journey for us to help them really? And even like the data, to your point earlier, Drew, what are the questions that our clients are asking us? And how do we take these individual questions and serve up the answer so a broader population than just the one person who asked the question, like how do we build out so we really have a really deep help center, and the content of the help center is just questions that we've been asked that we just want to make it easier for people to find the answer to.
That's cool. So, if I could just take a little bit of a digression here, because this is one question that I had on my mind the minute I heard you were on. Because the first time I actually heard about EquityZen was back in 2023 when you did your rebrand, right? And I think this must have been your first year in the organization. So, where did it start, right? Like, what was the diagnosis that led to the point that, hey, we need a little bit of rebranding, right? Like, and where did that come in from, right? Like, and how did that impact the customer experience, if at all it did?
I think it was something that we even maybe talked about when I was interviewing for the role. And there was a real opportunity where EquityZen was starting to be really known in the market. The category was starting to build. And we, as EquityZen, needed to present ourselves in such a way that really sort of reflected who we were as a company. Like this idea of being welcoming, the idea of helping people to invest in the future that they want to see. Like that was already core to EquityZen. It just wasn't expressed in our experience at all. In the experience, it looked very sort of corporate and not distinctive. And so we just set out to say, okay, what can we do? What is it that what we should stand for, and how do we take all the great parts of EquityZen, and then how do we visually show up in a way that reflects who we are? We try to be open. We try to be transparent. Those things are like more white space, more, when you get into design, we have our logo, and then in the middle of the logo is what we call a path. It's like we see this as a journey. And so I would just say like it was kind of like, it was a rebrand. It was a redesign, but it was a redesign because we weren't showing up as who we were. We were showing, the imagery was dark. It felt very closed. And that's just like not who we were as a company. So it's like we needed to put on the clothes that reflected who we were. It was like what not to wear, brand, fintech style.
But how do you get founder alignment on a brand change, and especially when the founders effectively worked on the original branding, right? Like so, like how does that shift really happen, right? How do you convince someone of saying that, hey, we need to do something better? You've done this good job, but
I think I just was honest. I think I just said something similar to what I said to you guys, which is it's just the system that we have today just doesn't reflect like who we are and what is so special about EquityZen. And then we did research, and I was able to work with some agencies that I'd worked with in the past that just were happy to come in and really help us get to something that really reflects who we are, and was ready for like, what is the next generation of EquityZen? It went from being like the little kid to getting dressed and going to work.
This has been such a great conversation. I'm so appreciative, Gene, for you being so open, especially within a business that does have a lot of compliance. The way we typically like to close things out here is actually just by asking some speed round questions.
Oh,
Just
okay.
just a couple. So you ready?
I'm ready.
If you had 100 grand and no marketing rules, no compliance rules, what growth channel are you testing?
I'm doing more video
More
today.
video.
Yeah.
Like podcasts, like in-office production, like following the founders, clipping.
We do video. I think I'm paying for more of our videos to be out in the world.
Yeah, I like that. Video is it's such an underutilized thing. Such great stories can be told that way. What's your AI growth hack?
Well, I think this, when we started this blog, no one was talking about AI search, the EquityZen insights.
Yeah.
And then suddenly AI search started being a thing, and we were like, oh, wow, long form quality content actually helps you
Yep.
with search. And so that was, I don't think that wasn't our goal when we started. Our goal was to really help people. It just shows that it helped AI search. And so we're trying to just do more of that.
Great. Nice, beautiful surprise. What's your wellness hack? What keeps you excited every day? What's that
What's my
thing?
wellness hack? I get up early and I really try to meditate every morning, just like 15 or 20 minutes. And like, what it's like for me is, remember when we used to have to defrag our computers?
Yeah.
It's like my brain needs that. And so I really try to just like, I've been meditating for decades, and it's still very hard for me, but I do try to just like turn off if I can.
How early are we talking here?
Between 5 and 6, not
Good.
like
No,
crazy,
that's
not
a
like
good time.
a 3 a.m. kind of thing. I have to do it before, try it before my dog wakes up and wants to eat.
Yeah. Nice, nice. And then last question, if you had to go join another department at EquityZen other than the marketing team, what department are you joining?
What a great question. I really am excited about us now being part of Morgan Stanley, and really the opportunity about Morgan Stanley covers the private markets more broadly than anyone else. And so if I wasn't doing marketing, it would be part of like how do we build that out? Because I think that's a real big opportunity here.
Awesome, awesome. Well, you did a great job on the speed round. Gene Brandolini-Lamb, thank you so much for joining us on
Thank
CMO
you.
Uncovered. This was so insightful. And we're excited to stay close and keep watching EquityZen scale up to the moon.
Thank you. This was very educational.
It's always a pleasure being with you both. Thank you.